really well, so it's not hard to just pass them right by and not even notice they're sitting there. And at the moment, we are traveling through some man-made canals. The first canal that we just came out of, that was put here by Jefferson Parish. That's the parish that we live in here, where most of you are from. It's probably called Counties, but in Louisiana, we like to be a little different, so we call them parishes. The rest of the canals that you will see here today were put here by oil companies. Back in the late 40s, 50s, early 60s or whatnot, oil companies were kind of spread out throughout Louisiana, and that's why you see so many of the canals out here. Some of the things that these canals have in common with each other is, for the most part, they're pretty much all straight, and almost all of them will come to dead ends. That's why we came out of the first canal. We turned in this direction here because back behind us is actually a dead end. And one of the advantages that the oil companies had in putting the canals here is that it simply allowed them to float their equipment back and forth easily instead of going over the natural terrain or surface that was out here. Now coming up along this left side, there is another turtle out here. I think so far most of the animals we've seen have been left-handed animals. Now, the thing about it, folks, I haven't figured out yet is, for whatever reason, on the way back, they seem to switch hands on me.
It's a big one.
That's where it counts.
It's a big one. Oh, yeah.
There's a little alligator here as well. He's in the grass, and he's plants right here.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a few alligators out here in this area. I must have had the wrong number when I was calling earlier. That'll show you how they blend in, and it's easy to pass right by them and not even notice that they're sitting there. It looks like there is a little one right along the right side here. He's a lot smaller than what we've seen so far. He's almost even with the front of the boat, maybe 6 or 8 inches or so out of the water. I don't know if y'all can see him back there. I try to put the bow closer to him. He's a small guy, but he's blended in real well.
Are you? Yeah.
Like I said, he's about even with the front of the boat, about 6 inches so out of the water. He's facing the front of the boat. And you will feel a bump in just a second because we're going to bump into this tree. The wind's going to blow us into it, so just be aware of that. We don't want anybody to get their fingers caught.
What's your elbow?
Now, folks, this pocket of water that we're about to pull into here, this pocket of water is here because of the oil companies that we were talking about earlier. Years ago, there was a platform that used to sit right back here. There's an alligator right along the edge of the bank over here along the left side. He's a little big. He's bigger than the other one that we saw. Get us a little closer to him. To give you an idea as to how you can tell the size of an alligator while it's in the water, what you want to do is you want to measure the head of the alligator, because in most cases when you see them in the water, all you really get to see is just the head of the alligator. So the way that you do it is you want to measure from the tip of the snout where the nostrils are sticking up out of the water to the middle of its eyes. Every 1 inch that you see in between there represents 1 foot of alligator. Like I said, from his nostrils to the middle of his eyes, every 1 inch will give you roughly 1 foot of alligator. And that works no matter how big or how small the alligators are. That's how we tell how big they are before we'll reach our hands down there to grab one of these alligators and stick them on the boat here with us. Just to let you know, folks, before the tour is over, we will have us an alligator on the boat here today. And depending on how big he is, we'll even let you pass him around and take pictures with him. I get chills, some of y'all don't believe me.
So how old do you think that guy is?
Say again?
How old do you think that
How
guy is?
old would I say that guy is? If I had to just kind of give you a rough idea, I'd say you're looking at probably between 5 to 10 years. If I just had to give you a
Really?
when they're young, that's when they're going to grow the fastest. And what happens is, just kind of give you an idea, when they're first born, they're about 6 to 10 inches long. The first year, they don't grow very much at all. But after that first year is when they're going to go through a growth spurt, which is going to be about a 40 year for the next 3-4 years or so. You know, and once that's over with, then it's going to slow down a lot. And what they'll do then is they'll start to grow taller, and they'll start to fill out kind of like humans. And they'll develop their sexual organs, and they'll start to become more territorial and whatnot. And that's probably the stage of this alligator.
So that one there could be up to 10 years old already.
It could be. Yeah. A lot of it has to depend on how long it stays for them and how much they get to eat. Alligators, depending on what you read, they live generally somewhere between 80 to 100 years.
Wow.
Folks, like we were saying a little while ago, this pocket of water that we're in, years ago, there used to be a platform that sat right back here, and they were pulling out natural gas from this area. Now, as you can see, the platform itself is gone, but there's still a capped-off well, which is right out here. If you notice the PVC pipe that's sticking up out of the water, to the left side of that PVC pipe, there's an old capped-off well about 6 or 8 inches away from it. It's right beneath the top of the water. The well itself is about a foot diameter. It looks like a little turtle shell out there. Now, throughout most of the year, the water level back here is high enough that it covers these wells. That's why we put the PVC pipe out there to mark where the well is at. Since folks, if you're out here in a regular boat and you didn't know where you were headed, you run into one of these wells and there's a pretty good chance that it is just going to split the bottom of the boat on you and sink you right where you're at. And I would hate for that to happen to me again this week. Especially everybody in the boat with me, right? Y'all don't necessarily want to stay out here all night with me, folks. It's not as fun as it sounds, trust me. But there is an alligator over here along the left side. He's in the grass.
In the grass. Oh, yeah.
How small they are in their right town already. Where they look like. It could be like maybe 3 or 4 years.
I think some of you may have noticed along the right side, just a second, there's a cabin. I'll tell you about the cabin once we get a little closer to it. But there is a little turtle in the water here. He's just kind of floating around back here by me.
Oh, there he is. Oh, he went under. He's starting.
The gators will eat turtles. Alligators are scavengers. They don't really care what it is that they eat. They're not real picky. Their main diet here, though, is mostly going to be the fish. There are plenty of fish that are out here for them. And this is all freshwater. So if you actually see someone back here fishing, they're looking for bass, perch, and catfish. And along the way, you may even notice that we have a couple of fish that like to jump out of the water. We have 2 species here that will do this. There's a small one called a mullet, and there's a big one called a carp. But Those are the two that will jump out of the water. Now, just a second ago we mentioned about the cabin that you see coming up. What that is, folks, is that's actually my house. Yeah. That's where I watch all the Saints games at. So Sunday, you want to come watch the game, this is where we'll be. There's plenty of room for everybody, y'all. It's a lot bigger on the inside than what it appears to look like from the outside. Don't let it fool you. Even Sean Payton might stop by because he's got a lot of free time on his hands this season. You have to be a Saints fan to appreciate that either. But no, seriously, the cabin that you see here, the cabin was put out here really to give you an idea as to what life was like years ago when people lived out in the Martian swamp. Before Hurricane Katrina, you may notice there's a little barrel that's sitting out here. Before Katrina, that barrel was actually connected to the cabin. Barrels like that were used as cisterns. And of course, years ago, cisterns were used to catch rainwater. And also before Katrina, there was an outhouse that used to sit behind the cabin. The outhouse is where many young Cajuns first learned to read at. It's where they kept the best material, folks. See his road bucket, if I'm not mistaken. Is this thing still working? Because that really didn't go as well as I expected. I didn't realize we had so many Cajuns on the boat here today. Thought I might have been the only one. Didn't mean to offend anybody. Coming up along the right side here in just a minute, you will notice there's another cabin. And the cabin that you're about to see here, folks, was put here back in 2001 for a movie. The name of the movie was called Tempted, and the star of the movie was Burt Reynolds, if anyone's ever seen it. Now, the whole thing was not shot here. Just the swamp scenes from the movie were filmed here. Like I said, the name of it was called Tempted. It's coming into view now off the right side here.
Swimming in the water.
Really quick, there's a log over here with about 3 turtles sitting on off our left side. So folks, getting back to the cabin, you may notice the canal that's running alongside the cabin. At the back of that canal, a movie that you may be a little more familiar with was filmed, a movie by the name of The Pelican Brief. If anyone's ever seen that, the swamp scenes from that movie were shot right back here. And also, if you watch a lot of MTV, you may be familiar with the show called The Wild Boys with Steve-O and Chris Pontius. They've been here twice to do some filming. American Idol back before Katrina when they were in New Orleans. Ryan Seacrest was out here with a few of the contestants. They shoot their introductions at the beginning of the show. I have a photo album I'll pull out here in just a second. It's got some pictures in it. If anybody wants to see that, we'll go ahead and grab it while we're sitting here. Just sit on the bench here, folks. Y'all can pass it around. You can let it sit there, whatever you want to do with it. But like we were saying about the films and whatnot, there was actually 4 projects that were shot back here already this year. The first one was a reality show on the Spike Channel. It was about hunting nutrients. It was called Rat Bastards, and somebody may have seen it. It's airing now. It's on TV now. So you can probably look it up on the internet or whatever. They'll show you the episodes. The next project that was done back here was one of the biggest movies ever filmed in Louisiana. The name of it was called Django Unchained. And the director was Quentin Tarantino, and the 2 actors were Jamie Foxx and Leonardo DiCaprio. In the photo album that's going around, you'll see pictures of Jamie Foxx in there. He was on tour here with me whenever they were finished filming. The next movie after that was a movie called Hatchet 3. Now, I don't know many details about this particular movie, but I'm assuming that the title kind of sums it up for you. Like I said, it was Hatchet 3. Most of it was done back here at night. The last movie that was done back here was a movie called Beautiful Creatures, and the main actress in this was Viola Davis. She was in the movie The Helper, if you're familiar with that one. And that one finished up probably about 3-4 months ago. They finished doing that one. But one last thing about the canal, folks. This canal marks the end of the private property. From the first canal that we came out of to this canal here, that's private. Everything else that you're going to see back here today belongs to the national park, just to kind of give you an idea as to what you're going through while we're back here. And earlier I mentioned to you that it was illegal for anyone to come out here and hunt the alligators. And again, that's because most of the land belongs to the national park. But in the state of Louisiana, as some of you probably know already, there is a hunting season on the alligators. And folks, the hunting season lasts for 30 days out of the year. It starts roughly around the beginning of September. During this time, that does not mean that just anyone can go out and start hunting alligators. To be able to hunt the alligators, folks, you have to get what's called alligator tags. Now, one of the purposes of the hunting season is really to control the population of the alligators. In Louisiana, we have almost 2 million alligators. It's estimated that we have 1.5 million in the wild and another 500,000 on farms. And it's said for every one that you see out here during the day, it represents 5 to 10 more of them at night. Alligators are nocturnal. They're most active during the nighttime. The alligators that we come across out here during the day, these are union alligators, folks. These alligators are working. That's why they come to the boat like this. There's an alligator passing off our left side. I'm going to back them up a little bit. They're getting kind of lazy now. This morning they were out more and swing around. But you can see when it warms up a little bit, they kind of get a little lazy on it. They just want to sit around.
Oops, he's going to go away. Scaring me.
Yeah, I'll go to a little detail. Folks, this stretch that we're going to go through right here, this is usually a good spot to come across more turtles. For whatever reason, they really like to group up in here to be able to sun themselves. And just to let you know, with all the different species of birds and turtles that are back here, I'll be honest with you, I do not know the name of every species that we may come across. So if y'all happen to know the name of a particular species, feel free to just go ahead and yell it out. I don't have to be the only person up here telling lies. You can join in as you see fit. One big group effort here, folks. I don't think anybody will say anything. Nobody's really said much about me yet. At least not out loud. You may be thinking it more so than actually saying. Teamwork is done. But coming up ahead of us, you will notice in the trees all the gray stuff that's hanging in these trees here. This gray stuff is called Spanish moss. You know, my great-grandmother told us that years ago they would actually use the Spanish moss to fill mattresses, pillows, cushions, anything they needed to make softer, they would use these plants. For those of you that may not be familiar with the moss, Spanish moss contains plenty of bugs, plenty of red bugs. They call them chiggers. So if you can imagine sleeping on that, if you've ever heard the saying, don't let the bed bugs bite. Well, there you go. So before she would use the plant, she would have to kill it. And to kill the plant, what she would do is she would take it and she'd stick it in a bucket of water or a tub of water and let it sit there for about 3 weeks or so. And eventually the moss would drown. Once the plant would drown, she would pull it out to dry it out. And while it's drying out, the moss is going to lose its exterior coating. And all you're left with is a black horsehair type of material. Now, just because you have killed the plant, that does not mean that the bugs are going to stay gone for long, folks. The bugs usually always come back. So about once a month or so, she would have to take the moss back out, shake it out and beat it out, and then she would use a rolling pin to be able to put the moss back into shape. Now, I'm glad we've advanced a little since then. But I think these life jackets that are up above us here still contain the Spanish moss. So folks, if we have to put them on for any reason and you feel something crawling on you, look, don't worry about it. Just bear with it for a little while. And when you make it back to the dock, I will be sure to shake it out for you. Yeah. That's the least I can do for those of you that will make it back to the dock, folks, is to shake your life jacket out. The rest of y'all, well, we're not going to really have to worry about shaking those life jackets out now, will we? And to be honest with you, if we have to put the life jackets on for any reason, the last thing that you need to be worried about is going to be the little bugs that will be crawling on you. It's just a little word of advice here, folks. If we have to get out into this water, you don't have to be the fastest swimmer out here to survive. You just have to be faster than the slowest swimmer here, and you should do just fine. That's one of the reasons why I pass the life jackets out. Because I know that life jackets will just slow you down. That way it increases my chances of getting back to the dock. Just being honest, so that's all.
How deep is it right here?
How deep is it? Right here, you're probably about 4 to 6 feet.